These people are the worst of the worst, whether you're a member of Tren de Aragua, MS-13. I mean, these are some of the most ruthless and violent gangs in the world, on the globe. And these are people who were invited into our country for 4 years under the Biden administration. And we finally have a president who cares enough about the American people to deport these criminal aliens, to uphold the rule of law, to uphold our national sovereignty, something the American people have been begging for forever, and something that President Trump ran on. This is part of his mandate that voters gave him last November. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. But remember, these are people, whether it's Tren de Aragua or MS-13, who don't only murder and rape and pillage the American people, but at times take sadistic pleasure in torturing their victims. These are the worst of the worst. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we should all agree that we want these people out of our country. And thankfully, President Trump is getting them out of our country.
Yeah, well said, Congressman. All right, joining me now, Congressman Brandon Gill. Welcome back to the Alec Lace Show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. Love the job you're doing there in Congress. Got a few things to hit on. I want to start with these radical judges. A lot of people very critical of Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, that no arrests have been coming. Now we get two that happened back to back. What's your take on these radical judges that are harboring or aiding these illegal immigrants?
Well, we're still getting details right now, but what I'm glad about is that we have an FBI and a DOJ who wants to interpret the rule of law and push the rule of law in an impartial way, who is not politicized. This is the biggest return to the rule of law in American history under Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. I think we should be very thankful for that. It looks like we've had a federal judge that has been harboring illegal aliens. That is a problem. That's a crime. And I'm glad, if that's the case, that they're going after it.
Yeah, and it's just kind of odd, the reactions, too, obviously, from both sides that, we're seeing, especially the Democrats that are all flying down to El Salvador. They're making a big thing about the Kilmar Garcia, and it seems like it's a hill they're willing to die on. Yet it seems like every time you open the news, it seems to get worse for this guy. Now it seems like he's, been linked to human trafficking. It just seems like each page gets worse, but they're still willing to die on that hill, and it's mind-boggling to see it.
It really is. And in that case in particular, you had two different courts who said that he was a member of MS-13. He's been suspected of human trafficking from a police office in New Jersey. He was ordered to be released. I mean, these people are the worst of the worst, whether you're a member of Tren de Aragua, MS-13. I mean, these are some of the most ruthless and violent gangs in the world, on the globe. And these are people who were invited into our country for 4 years under the Biden administration. And we finally have a president who cares enough about the American people to deport these criminal aliens, to uphold the rule of law, to uphold our national sovereignty, something the American people have been begging for forever, and something that President Trump ran on. This is part of his mandate that voters gave him last November. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. But remember, these are people, whether it's Tren de Aragua or MS-13, who don't only murder and rape and pillage the American people, but at times take sadistic pleasure in torturing their victims. These are the worst of the worst. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we should all agree that we want these people out of our country. And thankfully, President Trump is getting them out of our country.
Yeah, well said, Congressman. I would imagine nobody knows that more than our angel families that we have in this country that must be watching some people's trying to stick up for these illegal aliens, being like, what is going on? We've seen one of them speaking from the White House there, just about how passionate they are. I mean, we don't want to see any other American families suffer this, and they know the cost all too well. And so when you don't have radical judges harboring illegals in their house, you have them blocking President Donald Trump's orders to try to get these people out. And it's got to, especially to the people in this country that have lost a loved one at the hands of one of these illegal gangbangers, it has to make you feel like your country's betrayed you.
It is. If you have a president under President Biden who flooded our country with 15 to 20 million illegal aliens, and then you have a president who is getting held up in court every single step of the way as he's trying to lawfully deport criminal, violent, illegal aliens, you don't have a country anymore. The American people voted for this. They voted for our president to make our communities safer, to get rid of people who are making claims on our resources, who have no business being here to begin with, and have no claim to our resources whatsoever. So President Trump is not only doing what he said he was going to do, what he was elected to do, but he's keeping the American people safe, and he's bringing back our national sovereignty. The American people want to know that whenever they go to the ballot box in November, that their votes actually matter. That not only is it a clean election, but that the election actually has consequences, and that people will do what they said they were going to do. And that's what President Trump is doing. But that's what the courts are trying to stop him.
Yeah, and we didn't vote for these federal judges. We voted for President Donald Trump to keep the American citizens safe. That's what we wanted. And you have the people on the left that are screaming about due process, due process. When you had Barack Obama, who they called the deporter in chief, he deported millions of people, over 75% of which never got any due process. Bill Clinton deported millions of illegals. Over 90% never saw any type of due process. But all of a sudden, that's become their new favorite word: due process, due process. And it's like, if you come in and you put up that viral tweet, the only process you're entitled to is a deportation. And it's like, it shows the hypocrisy of the left, where they didn't care about any of this stuff while one of the Democrats was doing it. It's just President Donald Trump. And mind you, those guys didn't face any injunctions to stop them from doing their mass deportations.
That's right. These people had no due process coming into our country. And we talk a lot about this due process stuff now that the left has brought it up. But what illegal aliens have is they get a hearing. And once we determine that they are here illegally, they're deported. That's it. That's all there is to it. You're gone. And that's exactly, again, what the president was elected to do. But these people had no process coming into our country. They flooded our communities. They flooded our neighborhoods. And we didn't even know half the time where they were coming from. Were they coming from Mexico? Were they coming from other parts of Latin America, from China, from other hostile nations? Were they members of foreign gangs? Who were these people? We don't know. But President Trump is getting them out, and that's what we should be thankful for.
And we are. And not only are the judges trying to block Trump from deporting all these criminals out of the country, but they're also blocking his other efforts. In particular, the one just recently, they blocked his executive order for election integrity, saying that you have to prove that you're a citizen of the country to register to vote, which is another common sense executive order. But that's being blocked. And it's like, you don't have to show your ID to register to vote. But now they're making Americans, we got to show a real ID just to fly inside the country. So citizens get punished just for traveling in the country, while illegals can freely just register to vote, and it makes you want to bang your head against the wall.
Well, think of how dangerous this is for that magnitude of illegal aliens to be in our country right now, and then turn around and find out that you don't have to prove your citizenship to vote in our elections. Isn't that a major security risk for our elections, for election integrity? That's, again, something that everybody should be on board with, is securing our elections and making sure that the only people voting are people who should be voting. That's basic common sense, and that's what our president's trying to do. We passed the SAVE Act in Congress a couple of weeks ago that would help ensure this. It'll go to the Senate. We'll see if we'll need a few Senate Democrats to get on board. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, it's just disheartening, and it's really amazing in the United States alone. I mean, you go to vote, and no one cares who you are. I go to vote here in New Jersey; they never ask for ID, no nothing. But if I want to just fly to Pittsburgh, I got to bring the doctor who delivered me, so that they know that I belong to the country. We just feel like it's everything seems to be against the American citizen and for the illegal that's coming in. I mean, it seems like, especially over the last 4 years, you were much better off coming into this country illegally than being born here. That's what it seemed like.
Well, remember all of the people who are being flown all over the country at taxpayer expense by the Biden administration, illegal aliens. Did they have to provide IDs to get on those planes? Oftentimes they didn't have them. And that was a problem. And now American citizens are being treated with a much higher standard of identification verification. That is putting the American people last. That was a problem, and that's what we're moving away from. So I'm thankful that President Trump is in there. I think that Congress needs to make it their top priority to back up the president right now as he is deporting illegal aliens, as he is putting the American people first. We ought to be codifying his executive orders into law. That should be our top priority. We're working on it right now. We're working on doing that through reconciliation, and I think that we're going to be quite successful there.
Well, let me get to that there, Congressman, because that is the big knock right now coming, is that people are hammering Congress right now for not doing enough, not stepping up. Only 5 bills have hit the president's desk here in the first 100 days compared to when Joe Biden was there. He had 11 bills on his desk by now. And so people are saying, a lot of people calling out Speaker Johnson, a lot of people calling out the members of Congress saying, the ball is in our court. it's now or never time before we hit the midterms, and not enough is happening here. So what's your take right now on, I would say, what the lack of action that we're seeing coming out of the House?
Well, we passed several bills out of the House, but remember, for them to get to the president's desk, the Senate has to pass them as well. And we have a 50 vote majority in the Senate. We have a simple majority, but you have to have 60 votes in the Senate to get a bill to the president's desk. And right now we don't have that. We only have 53 votes there. That's where the big hangup is. So we're working on ways of getting around that. We can do that with reconciliation. That's a bill, a procedural process that's what's called privileged in the Senate, meaning we only need 50 votes there to get it passed. And that's where you're going to see an extension of the Trump tax cuts. I think we'll also see no tax on tips, hopefully no tax on Social Security, and a few of the other things that President Trump ran on. It's also where you'll see funding for border security, which our border needs it badly. We're hearing from Tom Homan, they need money. We're going to get that to them quickly. We also have funding for our military, to rebuild our military after 4 years of Joe Biden. And then we've got a variety of energy policies that are in there as well. So that's one thing that we're working on now. This is going to be one of the most consequential and biggest pieces of conservative legislation in years. And that's going to be our big focus for the next few weeks. Now, we've also got other things like rescission bills. I'm on the DOJ subcommittee, and we had a hearing about a month ago or so with the head of NPR and PBS. And I got to ask and question the head of NPR, Catherine Marr, about some of the wild and outrageous things that she's tweeted over the past several years, and put her on the spot, make her answer for it, and ask her, do you really believe that America is addicted to white supremacy? Do you really believe that we should be paying reparations? Things like that. She, of course, denied it. But that is moving the ball forward, and we're hearing right now that we're about to get a rescission bill from the White House to defund NPR and PBS and defund parts of USAID as well, which we've also had hearings over. Those rescission bills are also privileged in the Senate, meaning you only need 50 votes there. So again, we can do that just with Republicans. So that's where we're working right now, to be able to get bills that we can actually get passed through the Senate and get to the president's desk.
Well, I pray that that it happens, because it just seems like, they're trying to run the clock out on us too. And if we don't get it now, we're never going to get it. And just on the piece there with the DOJ, it's like we are seeing, and it almost, I say it goes both ways, because it's like we love seeing these DOJ reports that come out about the money that they found and recovered for us. But on the other hand, it makes you so pissed, because you're like, who is going to be held accountable for this? Because it's like, this has been going on for a long time. Somebody was signing off on it. Someone was receiving the money. And so, yes, it's great to see all this money that we're recovering. But it's on the other side, we want to see somebody pay a price for stealing our money.
Yes, we do. And we have to. First, we've got to make sure we're clawing that money back, so we're not continuing to fund the same nonsense we have been for several years and decades at times. So that's where we're focused right now. But again, a lot of this is going to have to go to the DOJ with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel at the FBI. And I know, I have full confidence in them that they are looking at going after the people who have been defrauding our country, defrauding taxpayers, and bankrupting our country. I mean, we're $37 trillion in debt. We don't have money to be funding NPR or PBS or other fraudulent things, and we're going to be stopping that.
All right. Well, give me your take this week. Congress back in session. What's your play this week? What are you focusing on?
I'm focusing on the reconciliation bill. We've got several committee markups that I'm going to be in. Those are going to be very long, days-long processes. So we're going to be spending most of our time there, and then we'll see if we can get this rescission bill this week. I hope we do. If not, I suspect we'll get it next week. So that's where we're going to be focused.
All right. Well, sounds good. Listen, keep up the good work there. I love watching the clips of you hammering these people. I think you're crushing it over there. So keep up the good work, and I'd love to have you back on down the line anytime. So thanks for giving me a few minutes of time today on the Alec Lace Show.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is